Channel 17, what was it? Crockett promotion. That I was so big, Bret, I'd wrestle 3 guys at once, so I'd pick all 3 of them up in a bear hug and just ragdoll.
In an insane moment, Hulk Hogan took to Logan Paul's podcast and delivered a shocking blow to CM Punk, leaving fans and critics stunned. Hogan's blunt remark that Bret hates everybody exposed deep-seated frustrations, stirring up a frenzy in the wrestling community. So what does this explosive revelation say about the simmering tensions behind the scenes? And how will it alter the legacy of these wrestling icons?
Yeah, and he's like really actually super strong. Like, he doesn't look like it. He maybe does look like it a little bit, but like the weight he pushes in the gym.
On September 3rd, 2024, Hulk Hogan made a notable appearance on Logan Paul's podcast. For those who aren't familiar, Logan Paul's podcast is renowned for its candid and often provocative conversations. It's a platform where celebrities drop their guard and share insights that you might not hear anywhere else. The show is famous for its relaxed, no-filter approach, and Hogan's episode was a prime example of this. Hogan, usually known for his larger-than-life persona and wrestling bravado, was surprisingly laid back and open during his chat with Logan Paul. It was a stark contrast to his typical public appearances. He seemed genuinely at ease, as if he was sitting down with an old friend rather than a high-profile interviewer. This shift in demeanor set the stage for some revealing and unfiltered commentary.
Yeah, and after what happened to my family, and then he's back, you know, it just never ends with him. And I love Bret to death, man. I started with Bret. I remember when I was in Atlanta, I was in the business about 3 years, and I was like 330 pounds, almost 340.
The highlight of Hogan's appearance was definitely the segment where he delved into his relationship with Bret Hart. Hogan's tone during this part of the conversation was both reflective and frank. He wasn't just recounting old stories or airing grievances. He was offering a deep insight into his feelings about Hart and the ongoing negativity that has surrounded their interactions. It was clear that Hogan felt strongly about the subject and was ready to lay it all out on the table. When Hogan turned his attention to Bret Hart, it was evident that he had some serious opinions. His critique was blunt and direct. Bret hates everybody. If it's not me, it's Flair, it's Vince. Hogan wasn't just throwing shade. He was expressing his frustration with what he sees as Hart's constant negativity. According to Hogan, Hart seems to have a problem with almost everyone he's crossed paths with in the wrestling world. This recurring theme of bitterness, Hogan argues, has become a significant part of Hart's public persona.
You know, it's like, okay, all right, whatever. You know, I just don't get it, man, because I love him to death. He's a good guy, and he was a great asset to the business.
Hogan's main point was that Hart's relentless criticism and dissatisfaction have overshadowed his achievements and contributions to wrestling. Rather than being remembered for his in-ring skills and accomplishments, Hart's legacy is increasingly colored by his disputes and public complaints. Hogan believes that this constant negativity has hurt Hart's reputation more than anything else. To fully grasp Hogan's perspective, it's useful to look at the history of Bret Hart's criticisms. Over the years, Hart has publicly criticized Hogan, Ric Flair, and Vince McMahon, often in scathing terms. Hart has talked about his frustrations with Hogan's influence and the politics he believes have negatively impacted his career. He's also had notable run-ins with Flair and McMahon, voicing his grievances in interviews and public statements. These criticisms have painted Hart as someone who feels wronged and disillusioned with the wrestling industry.
Why so angry after all these years?
Yeah,
like,
but
let
bro,
it go.
The vibe, similar vibes and similar energy, like attracts like. So when you talk that, you attract more of that hatred and that negativity.
These two wrestling legends have had a relationship that's been anything but smooth sailing, and their interactions over the years tell a story of both camaraderie and conflict. Hogan and Hart's paths first crossed when both were relatively new to the wrestling scene. Hogan was making a name for himself in Atlanta, working for the Crockett's promotion, while Bret Hart was just beginning to carve out his own space in the industry. Hogan reminisced about those early days with a mix of nostalgia and amusement. He recalled living across the hall from Bret Hart when they were both starting out. Imagine that. two future wrestling icons living so close to each other, probably sharing stories and trying to make their marks in the business. Hogan was already a towering figure, both literally and figuratively, and he would often joke about his size, saying he was so big he'd pick up 3 guys at once and toss them around. Bret was among those early rivals and training partners. It was a time of mutual respect, but also a bit of competitive spirit. As they both climbed the ranks, their professional paths diverged in significant ways. Hogan achieved superstardom with his larger-than-life persona and his pivotal role in the rise of WWE, then WWF. He became a household name and a symbol of professional wrestling's mainstream success. Bret Hart, on the other hand, built his reputation with a different approach. He was known for his technical prowess, precision, and dedication to the craft. Hart's skills in the ring earned him the nickname the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. But as their careers progressed, tensions started to surface. One of the key incidents that highlighted their strained relationship was the infamous Montreal Screwjob in 1997. This was a significant moment in wrestling history, where Hart, the reigning WWF champion at the time, was involved in a controversial finish to a match at Survivor Series. Hogan wasn't directly involved in the Screwjob, but the fallout from that event added fuel to the fire of Hart's dissatisfaction with the wrestling world, including Hogan. Hart felt that he was being mistreated and used as a pawn in backstage politics, which only intensified his bitterness. Hogan and Hart also had notable professional clashes in the ring and backstage. Their different styles and approaches to wrestling sometimes led to disagreements. While Hogan was known for his charisma and larger-than-life persona, Hart was a purist who valued technical excellence. This clash of philosophies didn't always lead to harmony, and their professional interactions occasionally reflected their contrasting views on wrestling. Despite their differences, there were moments of respect and mutual admiration between them. Hogan has often spoken about how Hart's dedication and talent were undeniable, even if they didn't always see eye to eye. And Hart, for his part, has acknowledged Hogan's impact on the business, even if their personal relationship was fraught with tension. When it comes to Hulk Hogan's view on Bret Hart, there's a lot more going on than just surface-level grievances. Hogan's recent comments reveal a deeper, more nuanced perspective on their relationship and Hart's overall impact on both his own career and the wrestling industry. From Hogan's standpoint, there's a genuine sense of respect and affection for Hart, despite their differences. Hogan has been quite open about his feelings, expressing a kind of baffled admiration for Hart. During the podcast, he said, "I just don't get it, man, because I love him to death." This statement isn't just lip service, it reflects Hogan's complex feelings toward Hart, despite the public disagreements and the criticisms that have flown between them over the years. Hogan hasn't lost sight of the fact that Hart is, in his eyes, a talented and significant figure in wrestling. Hogan recalls their early days with a kind of nostalgic warmth, remembering how they started out in the business together. For Hogan, there's an undeniable bond rooted in their shared history and the respect he has for Hart's wrestling skills. But while Hogan's personal feelings for Hart are positive, his perspective on Hart's public attitude is more critical. Hogan's frustration centers on what he sees as Hart's pervasive negativity. From Hogan's viewpoint, Hart's constant criticism of fellow wrestlers, promoters, and the wrestling business as a whole has had a detrimental effect on his public image. Hogan believes that Hart's tendency to focus on what's wrong rather than what's right has overshadowed his significant contributions to the industry. This ongoing negativity, in Hogan's opinion, has become a defining feature of Hart's legacy, rather than his achievements and talent in the ring. Hogan's advice to Hart, which he shared during the podcast, is both direct and heartfelt. He suggested that Hart needs to make a change in his outlook. It's time to switch up and be positive and happy and love people. Hogan isn't just telling Hart to put on a brave face. He's genuinely advocating for a shift in attitude. In Hogan's view, adopting a more positive and less confrontational approach could not only improve Hart's public perception, but also bring about a sense of personal fulfillment. Hogan seems to believe that if Hart were to focus on the positive aspects of his life and career, rather than dwelling on past grievances and conflicts, he might find a new sense of peace and appreciation for his contributions to wrestling. The reaction from fans, media, and wrestling enthusiasts has been pretty lively, to say the least. Social media exploded with opinions and hot takes almost immediately after the podcast aired. On Twitter, Facebook, and various wrestling forums, people have been buzzing about Hogan's candid remarks. Some fans are taking Hogan's side, agreeing with his perspective on Hart's negativity. They feel that Hogan's comments shed light on a truth they've long suspected, that Hart's ongoing bitterness might be affecting how he's seen in the wrestling world. On the flip side, there are plenty of fans who feel that Hogan's remarks are just another chapter in the long-running saga of wrestling drama, adding fuel to an already intense rivalry. The media coverage has also been pretty intense. Various wrestling news outlets and entertainment blogs have picked up the story, analyzing Hogan's words and their potential impact. It's fascinating to see how Hogan's comments are being interpreted in different ways. Some media pieces are focusing on Hogan's honest and reflective approach, portraying him as someone who's trying to offer constructive criticism. Others are highlighting the drama and conflict, framing it as yet another episode in the soap opera of wrestling politics and personal feuds. This coverage is doing more than just reporting the news. It's shaping how people perceive both Hogan and Hart in the current landscape of professional wrestling. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.